Hey.
You were David? How did you connect with David? Do you remember?
He called me up, said, "Hey, do you think I could do this?" I said, "Well, yeah, that's fine." You know what? I've never read this too. I have a copy of it at home, and I've never read it.
Well, this is what he's been working on for the Jamestown thing. He did his thesis, which you allowed him to do. And I remember he interviewed me and interviewed a lot of people. And he sent me a copy one time, and I said, "Oh, this is interesting." Then we got into this 50th year project, and I called Muley back. I said, "David, did you enjoy what you did?" "Oh, it was great." I said, "How would you like to write the definitive 50-year history? Because if you provide me with all the data and information, I'll work on it." He was now in the Columbia School of Journalism, big time.
Is he?
Oh, yeah. So we literally for a year I had a group of 10 guys. We went to the library. I'd give them assignments. You got this 10-year period, you got this 10-year period, and start getting the stuff from microfilms. And then we started interviewing people. Then we started getting pictures. And, just started to get together all these various sources. I put a couple of ads in the Society of American Baseball Research, looking for information on Jamestown. And people would send me stuff. We kept shipping it out to me. I mean, he's got an unbelievable bunch of stuff. So he's been writing and writing and writing. And now he's been working with Roger Kahn, the baseball author.
Sure.
And Roger's, he says, "Well, this is kind of fun angle, what this guy's doing." So because of you, again, we're now off. He's writing like crazy, and hopefully he'll have
somebody that can really help you with this project.
Because I'd never write it, nor could anybody else spend the time, but he's really done a remarkable job.
Good for him that he did this. I mean, and did is in Columbia.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah, this is big time.
Is this what he did then? Is this?
This is one of his latest drafts.
Okay.
He's now refining it, and then we'll have the ultimate manuscript, and then we'll find a publisher. And
the Falcons march on. Desperate times.
And it's not it gives. It's kind of interesting because it's got the good, the bad, when they folded. There were times when they just went from hundreds of thousands of fans, or 100,000 fans down to a 5-year period down to 22,000.
So he doesn't sugarcoat it, then let you know that, oh boy, everything is great.
And it sort of tracks minor league baseball, history. And the Expos, when they first came in here way back when, they had their own problems here. In fact, they came and left.
Right.
And then came back.
In the 70s sometime.
Yeah, exactly. How did Tom O'Reilly even hear about Jamestown, New York?
When they told me that this is where I'd be going to work, I was invited. I was out of baseball. I had been in baseball for 2 years, in '85 and '86, and I was out of baseball for 2 years. I made that decision, and purely financial. And boy, did I miss it. Yeah. And what was evident to me was, I was a fool to not be doing the thing that I knew I really wanted to do. So went to the baseball winter meetings. Must have been December of '88. With Mary, my wife. She was supportive of this. I don't know. She's like, I don't think that she ever really wanted me to work in baseball. The hours and really, again, the pay is low. But she was supportive of this, and I interviewed a couple teams, and after the winter meetings, I got a second call back to it was Watertown, the Watertown in the New York Penn League, which was now going to be an expansion club, and they were going to have the Indians, and Mike Schell was the guy running that. So they flew me out to Watertown. I had my second interview, and things were going well, and I didn't get the job. I was a runner-up for the job, and when I didn't get the job, that was it. We were gonna. You have to choose a road eventually and go down it, and so baseball was not the road we were going to travel, and it discouraged me. But you gotta do what you gotta do. And I had a couple friends about 2 weeks later live in Rockford, Illinois. There's an Expos club in Rockford. They said, "Come on in. There's the hot stove banquet. Dave Dombrowski, the general manager of the Montreal Expos, is going to be the speaker. Probably pretty fun." So I went. And son of a gun, Dan Duquette was the minor league director then, and he was there. He said a few words. And I don't want to there's another story within this even, but the owner of the Rockford Expos owed me one. He owed me something. And he bent over backwards to get me to talk to up there to talking with Dan Duquette, because there was an opening, a sudden opening had occurred in Jamestown, New York. And this was in February, and they had no one in the front office working yet, because they had to take their guy that was going to Jamestown and move him to West Palm Beach, because the West Palm Beach guy ditched him. Oh, so I remember Dan Duquette, you know, he kind of like looked at me like, oh no, another kid looking for a job here. But when I told him that I was runner-up for Watertown, his whole attitude changed a little bit. It's like, really? You just were the runner-up candidate for that in Watertown? Yeah, I was, you know. Oh, okay, well, fax me your resume tomorrow. You know, that's how Dan is. And I know that those Rockford Expo people were in there giving me plugs, which probably helped. Well, I faxed the resume, and probably a couple days later, I got a call from Bill Stoneman, who was in town. This was in Chicago. Like to meet with you. Met with him, interviewed, got the job. And, boy, you know, scooted out to, I had to look on the map to see where Jamestown, New York is. You know, and people don't know, people that don't get out east really don't understand how large New York is. You know, so instantly you're going to work in New York, you're thinking of metropolitan area. You really are, New York City. I mean, I guarantee you people near the Mississippi River and west who haven't gotten east, I mean, that's all they'll think of when you say New York is the city. So we look, geez, you know, it's pretty far away from New York City there, you know, so yeah, so I packed the bags and got out here in March of '89 to Jamestown, and got out of my truck, went to the Holiday Inn. That's where they were keeping me. Went up to the desk, said, "Hi, my name's Tom O'Reilly. I should have a room here." "Oh, you know, you're the new Expos general manager, huh?" I go, "Yeah, I am." It's like, "Well, good luck. We all love Tom Prohaska." And that was the first thing anyone said to me, like, "Ooh, okay," because I had been kind of warned that, you know, the guy I was taking over from was a local guy that was very popular, B, New York Penn League General Manager of the Year in 1988, and C, got canned unceremoniously after receiving that award. So yeah, I figured maybe that would be difficult. But what I didn't really know, and Bill Stoneman is one of my favorite people. He has his little ways, you know. He goes, write down what you think prices should be for fence signs and program ads and season tickets, you know. What do you think's fair prices, you know? So I'm writing them all down, you know. Then he shows me what the prices were in Jamestown the year before, you know. Like, oh, you know, they were low. He goes, "Okay, we're going to go with your prices." What do you think? I'm like, well, okay, Bill, but, you know, I'm kind of I'm backtracking a little here, you know. I'm like, yeah, these are tough jumps here. He goes, well, you know, in order for this club to survive, we've got to generate, you know, some revenues, and what we're priced out here, it's not doing it. And the Montreal Expos always, up until this year, they didn't even know how they did in 1988 financially. They had no record of it. It all got kind of thrown in the big Montreal pool. And at some point in time, they had decided this is ridiculous. We're going to treat this more seriously. We can't afford to be losing money here. You know, at least let's break even with this club. So there was a whole philosophy change in how they were running the club, and they must have decided that the people they had in there, well, let's put it this way, and Tom Prohaska, you know, I like him very much. They must have determined that it would have been very difficult for Tom Prohaska, a local guy, to come and tell somebody your fence sign is no longer 500, it's 1,000. That's, I'm sure, you know, a big part of that. It might not have been necessarily against Tom Prohaska, but it would have been difficult for this man to do this. It really would have been. And when you're working there, I mean, his reaction would have probably been, we can't, we won't, we can't do it. But here I was, just happier than heck to be back in baseball. Oh wow, and not only that, but I'm a GM now, and and first big career break, and I think things just bounced off me. I cared, but I didn't care. Yeah. So we went to work with these new prices, and there was a lot of resistance, of course. Merrill Rosen, WJTN, and he was also at the time, I think, the president of the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, I was told, here's, I had a list of people that I should know, Greg Peterson, Russ Dietrich. Well, Merrill Rosen was on this list, and he was quite angry with what we were trying to do. And I know Merrill said, there's no way it's going to work. And one of the issues was the team used to have so many buyout nights, free tickets everywhere, and we really wanted to not necessarily eliminate it, but limit the number of free nights. There's a lot of negatives to that. So we did that, and I was told, and I know Merrill was one of the people, you will die a quick death if you start charging people to come in the ballpark, in essence, So Merrill and I, had our we squared off a number of times, but he was one of the first guys to say the next year, I don't know however he said it, but what he told me was, wow, he's happily surprised that it worked out and impressed, and we had a great relationship in the 5 years that I was there. I actually walked away thinking, very highly of Merrill Rosen, that's for sure. And he was a guy who said, look, I guess I made a mistake in that judgment there, and he supported the club very well. So that was what we had to overcome the first year. It was an image changing thing. The image of the club wasn't healthy. It was, why should I go and pay money? Because I could probably go on a night where there's free tickets somewhere. And I really feel that the upper income people of Jamestown were not going to the ball games because, I had people, there were unkind names for these buyout nights. There was, I'm not going to say what the names were, but there was little nicknames for these buyout nights, and you want everyone to be able to come in your ballpark, but you certainly want the upper income people to want to go there too. It's an image thing, and it's very important, and it's not vain in any way. You got to have a good image. Every product, everything needs to have that. So by substituting these free night promotions with maybe the famous chick or doing more things like that, we started, opening night was always the full-size Louisville Slugger bat giveaway. Now that's something that'll bring people to the ballpark. It doesn't have to be free. They're more than happy to pay their $3 to get in the park. Heck, they were getting a bat that was triple the value of that $3 ticket, and the kids would be happy. And we started doing it every year with the Police Benevolent Association would help out and pay for some, call it Cops for Kids Night and Bat Night giveaway, and Paragon Cable would get involved with it, and it went very well, and that was a good way to start the year. And you do promotions like that to get people in the park. And I think the single, maybe most important thing that I was able to accomplish in the 5 years here was we started having like the Pella Window fence sign out there, doctors with a fence sign out there, and season tickets. We never did anything to chase or scare away the lower income people. They could always go to the park. The GA ticket was still only $2, and we had 4 free nights during the year, so that if the $2 was too much for you, there was times where you could go. And I think the image of the club rose, and that means more advertising dollars being generated, and what that means is that you'll be able to play baseball there another year because you're still, financially sound. And we ended up we were breaking even when I left. I, of course, would have liked to have been turning a profit, but we went from losing untold thousands of dollars to breaking even, and I think Montreal was reasonably happy with that. They ended up deciding that owning the club wasn't something they wanted to do, and after the '93 season, they sold the team, and then that's when I parted as well. But that's, I think, what we had to do. We had to upgrade the image of it. My gosh, you had a ballpark there that this should have been done in '84. I don't know what happened when the park was renovated, but that was the big chance to really move up a notch in the image. And don't know if that happened, and it has nothing to do with the quality of the people working there. Really, what it had to do with was Montreal at that time just looked at it differently. This wasn't something to prosper by. It was a great place for their kids to play baseball. And they'd send somebody in. Frank Wren was the GM there in '85, I think. And Frank, well, we know how talented he is, but my gosh, he gets there in March, and so you have a guy with putting in 2 months worth of work. You're only going to be successful so far.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was very important that Montreal changed that philosophy then. And even Tom Prohaska, when he was here, I don't know how much time he put in it in the winter months.
Teacher.
He was a teacher. So that was, I have to realize if I was successful, I also had more time to be successful than the people that were in front of me. There were some great people in front of me. Dan Lanetta, Frank Wren, Tom Prohaska. I mean, those are some good people there. Tom O'Reilly it was a full-time job, and almost became a workaholic the first couple of years there.
Did indeed.
Well, you had to, and it was fun, and it was worth it, and so.
You had some real unique promotions, though. I mean, you really had some interesting things, didn't you, Tom?
Well, you want to try different things. A lot of things don't work out. I wanted the Drifters Platters concert that got rained out. That would have been nice.
Brought in the chicken a couple times?
Brought in the chicken a couple times. Tried a laser light show out there. That worked with mixed results. Giveaways. I think I increased the giveaways, and if I didn't increase the number of giveaway items, what I did was we had better items. I just believe that a keychain night's not going to draw people to the park, but a jersey for the kids or a bat night giveaway for the kids was something that would attract someone, catch their attention. Let's go to the park. Junior's going to get a full-size Louisville Slugger bat he can play with all summer. Sure. That type of thing. I'm sure there's a lot of other little crazy things we tried to do out there. We brought in the King in His Court. You got the premium giveaway nights. You got your appearances, special appearances by people. That first year we had the Buffalo Jills come in. We had Captain Dynamite out there. You do all those things. It's fun. But the single thing I ended up concentrating on the most, besides always working on this image, was group sales, because they were really non-existent when I got here. You had a couple companies who had something going. Cummins Engine, MRC Bearings always had a night at the park, and they might have been the only two people. And what I did was, and again, these other guys didn't have time to do this, but November was my Warren, Pennsylvania month, hypothetically, where I spent a lot of time in Warren, Pennsylvania in November, calling on every business that had 50 or more employees, and actually being quite persistent with them. And we started getting, you start getting these groups out, a group of 200, from Warren. Some people I didn't get. Was it Blair out there? I never got Blair, but I had them interested enough so that the year I left, they finally decided to go out there, And that's what it is with some of these groups. oh boy, what is it, Pitt Des Moines Company
Mhm.
down there? You know, they came out. You know, we had probably 12 different companies from Warren ended up starting to come out. The oil company out there, the Quick Trip, United Refining,
Mhm.
they got quite involved with the ball club,
Mhm.
and you know, season tickets and a night out at the park, and they would sponsor one of the few giveaway free nights that we had out there, and that was good, and they were a fun group to have. But I spent probably 50% of my time working on groups, and I discovered that 45 minutes from the ballpark in any direction, you could get interest, and people would not say that it's too far to go. It seemed like you get past 45 minutes and that's what you heard. That was something, that was an easy reason for people to say no.
Mhm.
Well, it's just too far. For instance, Bradford, PA was wonderful, but Olean was very difficult. It was just a little too far. Fredonia, Dunkirk, great. But you get any farther, and it's not going to happen for you. So that's how we increased our attendance, was the group outing. Now, the group outing, what that does is, let's say Truck Light. How many employees do they have there? I wouldn't know, but let's say hypothetically they have 200 employees.
Mhm.
You might have, out of those 200 employees, 25 people that go to your games. The rest don't. Who knows why? They just aren't going to go to the ball games. Now, if you have a group outing and you get 100 of the 200 employees to go to the group outing, and they each bring, let's say, an average of 2 family members with, okay, so now you've got a nice group of 300 coming to the park. But what you have is 200 and some people who wouldn't have gone out there on their own.
Mhm.
But they'll go as a group. You know, fine, it's on Truck Light's paying for it, you know, socializing with your employees and families, it's fun. So now they're out there and they discover, my gosh, this is a wonderful ballpark, this is very entertaining, and you get a nice percentage of them coming back on their own then. And the word of mouth spreads. That's the best thing you can do if you want to start building on your program. If you have a park that is not sold out all the time, concentrate on those groups, because if you give it 2 or 3 years, you're going to see the results. Now, if they come to the park and the hot dogs are cold and the bathrooms are dirty and the game's always a stinker and you haven't cleaned up the park good, and so they're sitting in trash at their feet, well, maybe they won't come back. So you got to do your job when they get in the park. You know, otherwise it doesn't work for you. But
Speaking of parks, though, you had some exciting things happen on the field itself. I mean, you were there during a couple of championship years, weren't you?
yes, my first year there in 1989, we won the championship. We were a good team, but I remember the Pittsfield Mets were the club. I mean, they were killing everybody, and we had a good team, but we had a young team. Timmy Laker was the catcher. Boy, and his name's escaping right now. We had a good young shortstop. I mean, our 2 best prospects were like 19-year-old kids. And they actually ended up not playing in the playoffs. They were hurt. And we started, Dan Duquette was buying a few players from the Salt Lake City Independent Club and filling in.
Mhm.
And I remember he asked me once, and certainly this didn't happen very often, but it was, you know, probably beginning of August, and, you know, we were contending. Didn't know if we'd actually make the playoffs or not. And Tom, you know, what's it going to take for us to win a championship out there? I said, well, we need some middle infielders. You know, our shortstop is hurt, and I guess we were weak at second base. And maybe he listened to me. He probably knew this already, you know. But he ended up we bought a shortstop and a second baseman, and they did a good job for us. And we were very workmanlike. We weren't flashy at all. And just somehow got the job done with who we had. And game 1 in the playoffs was in Jamestown, and that was a great game. I'm trying to recall exactly. This was a best of 3 back then, and we won that game. That was a good tough game. As a matter of fact, I believe that was the game where we scored 3 in the 9th to win it. Yes, it was. It's only 5. Oh, actually, it's 7 years ago. So you gotta start thinking about this. But we were down. I believe we were down 3-1, and we got 3 in the 9th inning and won the game. Buenaventura Rodriguez got the big hit and drove in the tying and winning runs there. I remember that mob scene. I remember. As a matter of fact, I remember Tom Kassler, Mr. Poker Face. Sometimes, I remember him running out into the field and jumping all around you, and big old grin on his face. Because it's been years since he'd been working out there for so long, but it's been years since there was a playoff game like that, really, where we won so dramatic fashion. So we won that game, which was a shock because Pittsfield was just great, and we went out to Pittsfield then and lost game 2, played well, lost game 2 4-2, and then game 3 we won 1-0 in their yard, and that was Jim Eddy. Jim Eddy pitched a shutout. It was wonderful. He got better as his velocity got better as the game went on for some odd reason. Because as you're going in and we got the run in the 6th inning. You're watching that gun. When that fastball starts slowing down, it's time to put the reliever in. And I remember Pete Young was a starter for us that year, but he was our hardest thrower, and he was up in the pen in those late innings. And boy, he was bringing it. I was actually watching kind of down by the bullpen area, and he was in there, and he was, he's kind of a big, stocky guy, and he was throwing smoke in that bullpen, and boy, every time he'd throw, he'd look, and we'd see if Jim was going to be taken out of the game. And I remember the Pittsfield fans down there, just like the kids. You could really get right close to the bullpen there and watch, and what you saw was you were at the catcher's end of it, and then their jaws were dropping. Pete was just and he had that grunt when he threw too, and whap, the ball was making such a loud noise in the mitt there, and I get, oh my God, but Pete never had to come in there. As a matter of fact, Jim had a 1-2-3 bottom of the 9th, which probably added a year to my life and the stress factor there. I remember they had a rally in the 8th. It was a dangerous 8th, but we won in their yard 1-0, and it was great. And so we of course had our celebration in the locker room there. I got a bill for that later on, and the team hopped on the bus and was going home, and there was a microphone in the bus, and everybody gave like a minute speech on the bus. That was kind of fun. And one of the players who later came back as a pitching coach from Iowa, Pat, and his last name's going to elude me right now, but Pat got up there and announced his retirement from baseball. And he was a mediocre pitcher on our club, but he knew he was a sharp guy, and he knew that he wasn't ever going to make the big leagues. So he thought that he got up there and said, "I officially announced my retirement," and that was nice. And it was a fun bus ride, and just as things were winding down a bit, we're all celebrating. No one's really paying attention where we're going. So we had to be on the road 2 hours. It's kind of winding down a little bit. People are getting a little tired. The speeches are done. The rancor has subsided. We're passing, and there's a sign that says, "Welcome to Pittsfield." Oh, my God. This guy had taken the wrong turn. He'd just gone in a complete circle. And we hadn't gotten anywhere for 2 hours. And we made life miserable for that guy the rest of the way, let me tell you. Because he had actually gotten a little lost on the way to Pittsfield. So it was a long ride home. And so that was an interesting season. That was really a blue-collar team that I don't think we really felt had that much talent. And the best talent we had was actually young and very undeveloped. And most of our main guys got hurt, and we had people come in and just played good team baseball. So that was a good year, good guys. The next year we made the playoffs in '90. Well, so we got a ring in '89. We hadn't won a championship for years and years and years. So that was kind of nice. So I, of course, boasted that I brought the luck of the Irish with me. You know, 1 year, 1 ring. Hey, no problem, guys. You know, and I was, of course, being joking around about that, but that was fun to be able to say. And we were competitive the next year, but lost in the playoffs. And then in '91, we had a team that just couldn't be touched. That was a team that, we won a ton of games. I don't think we lost a game in the playoffs. In '91, we then had a playoff system where you had it was really quite dangerous. You had the best of 1, and then the best of 3. And I mean, it was very tough for us. They had such a wonderful 1-loss record, and a team that you just couldn't touch. The reward was this was hosting, a best of 1. We played Erie, and what happens in sports is the onus and the pressure's on the winning team because they have something to lose. Now Erie, did they have even a 500 record? I'm not sure about that. They had a very average ball club. They had some good players, of course, but all you need is one great starting pitcher on your club, and maybe they didn't have anything in the 2, 3, 4 spots, but they're going to throw the kid at you, and they have nothing to lose. You have everything to lose. It's very difficult, and I believe it was no score going into the 8th inning. We're very close to that. We were not. It was whether it was 1-1 or no score. We weren't hitting this kid, and but we broke it open. They made an error, and they made a lack of judgment play, and that you make a mistake against us, and our team was good enough where it was going to hurt you. I believe we got 4 runs in the inning. Something like that. We won either 5-1, 4-0 that game, but we broke it open to the bottom of the 8th. But it took all the way to the bottom of the 8th, so that was quite a game. And then we played Pittsfield again, and we beat them easily. I think again we played game 1 in our park and took them, and then I think we just went out there for 1 game in Pittsfield, and we were just good. It was tough to beat us. It was a pleasure seeing that team out there. You take a look at I'm really surprised at the lack of major leaguers on that '91 team. We had such a good ball club, but they were the Montreal Expos draft was mainly college talent that year, and a lot of them came our way. Mike Daniels, the catcher, who was every league he ever played in, he led it in RBIs. And he played for Oklahoma State, and led collegiate level in RBIs, led the New York Penn League in RBIs. It was just Mr. RBI. Who was our first baseman then? Derek White. Now he ended up playing Major League ball, but he never blossomed. He made it to the Major League level, and he'd be brought up. I think then he'd struggle.
Where did Brian Barnes fit into this?
Brian Barnes was '89. And Brian Barnes was not with the club when we won the champion. Brian Barnes came to the club, spent a good deal of time getting his arm prepared to pitch, and then when he did an outstanding job. But by August, Brian Barnes had already been promoted. Other kids, Montreal was very good in not taking too many players from our team, but we'd always seem to lose a pitcher. Chris Haney in 1990. We had Jamestown went through that period. Has to be unprecedented, and this is something that would be nice to see if Sabre could come up with. But we had that run of players who were on our roster, a New York Penn League roster in Jamestown, 1 year, and the next year was on a Major League club. You had Grissom here in '88 playing, and he got called up in like July or August of '89 to Montreal and stuck. You You had Barnes in '89, ended up making the team in '90, and Chris Haney pitched in '90 and ended up being brought up to the big league club in '91. I mean, my gosh, that's something else. I wonder if that's ever happened 3 years in a row. I mean, there's a lot of levels to be promoted up in that short of a time. So we had our, I mean, I missed the boat. I wish I was here for '88, you know, with the Cordero and Grissom and that crew. That would have been good. But it's just the '91 team. You'd think you'd have more major leaguers out of it, but see, you never know. You had the Derek White, and you had you know, Daniels. You know, you had your big sluggers, and then batting ninth was Mark Grudzielanek, our shortstop. And he ended up leading off at the end of the year only because we did lose a kid. A kid got promoted to Florida State. The Florida State League when they had an injury up there. So they moved him up to number 1 spot because we really didn't have a true leadoff guy. And Doug O'Neill, our center fielder, got injured, so he wasn't playing either. Grudzielanek was playing Major League Ball last year. You know, the last kid you'd think that would make it on that starting lineup does. So that's so interesting to see that happen. And so we won some championships. And then after the '91 season, that was when Dave Dombrowski went to the Florida Marlins and took his people with him. Frank Wren, Gary Hughes, all those folks. And boy, I mean, you could really tell because, you know, what the talent we were getting was their draft. It was the college kids that got drafted in the beginning of June. You know, their high picks came to us, and we were winning championships because, you know, they were making some good selections. Now, with that group of people in Florida, is it just a coincidence? I don't know, but all of a sudden, my last 2 years, we had sub 500 teams. And I think that's the reason why. You know, you just, unfortunately, the picks weren't there. The talent's not as good. And I always thought, that was the reason. You know, and you hate to say you aren't as good as the other guys before you, but I think that was probably the case.
Over that 5 years, you were really good for Jamestown time. I mean, you really made an effort to get out amongst the community, and I think you really benefited baseball.
Well, thanks for saying so. It's really quite simple to do if you really love what you're doing, and it's not difficult to talk or promote baseball, or, you know, especially in a smaller community like Jamestown, you should become part of it. And if it's a forced thing, people will perceive that. You know, I mean, what's so troublesome or bothersome about joining the Moose Lodge and having fun at the Moose Lodge, you know, and going to a few meetings? You know, those guys are great there. I mean, you become involved, do things, get known. I mean, what you want is when someone sees you walking down the street, they think baseball. You know, and that's, you should be Mr. Baseball. It's not that tough of a thing to do. It just evolves into it if you honestly like what you're doing and believe in what you're doing. You know, baseball is a wonderful thing for any community to have. You know, your ball club is a place where families can go, and it doesn't, you know, the price is right. It's good family entertainment. You know, so you're providing that for the community. But you can do more. You can do things for the youth. You can have a clinic. You know, you can just be nothing but positive for a community, and that's not a difficult thing to do. And it makes sense just to get right in there and do it. So I think someone who operates a club and makes the decision to, you know, work the hours there and then pretty much be a recluse or kind of hide is making a big mistake. They really are. And maybe maybe this really isn't the job for them. You know, it's fun. It's fun.
Thank you. It's terrific. You've been wonderful for our area. Really have time on that. awful lot of people still talk about you here. They haven't forgotten you.
Well,
They look forward to the day when you come down here during the season and they can give you a hug.
Jamestown is will always be very sentimental towards Jamestown. My first career break. First place that I bought a home, first child born in Jamestown. There's a lot of firsts in my life in Jamestown, so I'll always have a nice place for it in my heart.